Sputnik 1, what year was it? 1957. Sputnik 2 also in 1957. October and November. Sputnik 3 in 1958. Was there ever a Sputnik 4? Oh, there was. Okay. No. Oh, also Sputnik 4. 1960. Nice. Oh, I'm getting a call. Hello.
Hello.
Hi. Hang on. I need to make sure your face is. Oh, it's there. Okay. Perfect. So I'll go back and pretend that actually I'm already live. So kind of I have to do the whole thing again.
Okay, am I audible?
You are. Okay. Once again. I was kind of I don't know. I was just looking up uh, the Sputnik satellite program on stream till you came here. Till you
Cool.
joined us. So yeah, quickly. Okay. Hello and welcome once again to this brand new live stream. New week, but same topic. We are covering science fiction. And before we proceed again, please wave at your screens and say hi to Lauren. K. Nixon.
Hello.
Hello. Okay. Now that's out of the way. I know that came out rude. Okay. uh, we are continuing on the Prophets of Science Fiction series. Was first before, I mean, I want to ask you, was that a coincidence or was that intentional that we took a break after 4 episodes? Uh, because I went back and I was looking at the dates of when the episodes were first telecast,
Mhm.
and the first 4 episodes came out in November of 2011, and then there was a two month break, and the series resumed in February of 2012.
Oh, like for the
So
writer's break.
yeah, or maybe Christmas break or something, whatever
Mm.
that is. So that kind of like we took a break, and now we are back on Monday, and we are in 2012 now. But in 2021, it's snowing outside. Well, how about
Yeah,
for you?
it's intermittent sunshine and snow.
Wow. Okay.
But,
So yeah, like I was explaining to uh, the zero viewers who are watching this right now, the reason for the delay was that I had to run to the supermarket for today's food, and I was eating waffles that half eaten there. And
ooh,
today
nice,
I have raspberry flavored energy drink that I'll
nice.
be consuming on stream. And but then the reason I went to the supermarket so late was because I was procrastinating on watching the episode, and that it's like that the bicycle stand domino
Like
effect.
a domino
Domino
effect.
effect, exactly. Okay, I was forgetting the name for a moment
I like bicycle stand effect better. I think that works better.
there. Yeah, it's an analogy that again slightly going off topic before we come back and resume on our main topic. It's a on I don't know, you probably don't know him. There was a ex-cricketer, Indian cricketer called Navjot Sidhu,
Mhm.
who now does commentary, also dabbles in, I think, politics kind of. He ran for their local election in Punjab or something. But yeah, he was a prolific opener for India in the 90s, early 90s, and he gave away before Sachin Tendulkar, all the big guns uh, started playing. He was one of, and yeah, so the point is, he has this, he uses a lot of poetry in his commentary. and he goes into this like using rhyme schemes and stuff like that. So he's very creative with his words.
Mm.
And he once used that analogy, was that he wanted to say, the wickets are falling in English. Usually they, I think the phrase they use is falling like 9 pins or falling like 10 pins.
Yeah,
It's like one falls and then all the rest, everybody falls. So
like
like,
Skittles.
yeah, so falling like 9 pins, and these are the phrases that are typically used by commentators. So once he was trying to describe where like one wicket fell down, and then after it set off a reaction chain, as in,
Hmm.
so until then everything was going fine, and now wickets are just tumbling.
Yeah.
So he used that, and he referred it to, he said, this reminds me of the bicycle stand outside some theater in my hometown. One bicycle falls, and then the whole everything falls. So that
Yeah.
I don't know, the domino, that was my first domino effect. That's always, I remember, I go back and I remember that line, that moment he
Mm.
said that. So yeah, the domino effect. I watched the episode late, and that's why, and we are starting 40 minutes late today. Anyway, how was your day been? How has your day been?
All right. Yeah.
Okay,
Uh, just getting on with
cool.
stuff.
Hmm.
I'm not doing art today. I'm behind on my. I'm doing NaNoWriMo, and then I'm also doing NaPoWriMo, which is the poetry one. And I'm behind on my poem, so I've got my old Will's Wit kit of insults out, and I'm going to try
Uh,
and make a poem.
doesn't the no in the nano remote stand for November?
Yes, but they're because not everyone is free to give up their whole month in November for the novel writing. There's also a camp. It's called Camp Nano, which is in April, and there's another one in July.
I see. Okay.
Um, but that just essentially means that diehards like me do it 3 times a year.
Cool.
So,
Okay. We, I think we may have a viewer, as I think I told you over the weekend.
mm,
So we'll wait. Hopefully, we'll have some comments and back and forth, so that we'll have some live feedback as well. I can't excitedly waiting for that. Uh, so let's begin.
yeah,
Yeah, we are already late. uh, Today's topic, before we start, like we always do, like the tradition is, Isaac Asimov. We ask Lauren what needs to go after and
mm.
so what do you think
I'd
we should
say
name today's episode?
maybe the 3 laws of robotics.
Okay, slightly longer. And should I say laws of robotics?
Or I just put 3 laws. Everyone will know that it's of robotics that
Really?
has come across him before.
Okay. I did not know of this. I mean,
Mm.
now I do, but before today I did not. So that was, I mean, of course we'll talk about it. Uh, okay, let me quickly go back to my notes. Yeah. So here it is.
I apologize if I start randomly giggling because all of these, it's not a poetry kit. They're magnets that you could stick on your fridge. I've had since I was a kid.
Uh
They're
huh.
not poetry ones. They are literally Shakespearean insult ones. So I'm probably just going to start giggling to myself if I,
You
peel one
are you
apart and it
are
says buttock or something.
sorting magnets.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
Because I'm trying to generate some ideas for some poems, but
Hmm.
so you just move words around because they're magnets, but in this case they're just insulting magnets. So it's going to be a very rude poem, I think.
That's the first I'm hearing of it. So there are magnets with words on it.
Yeah.
Stop. And oh, okay. No, I don't get it. This is one magnet.
It has an explanation.
I see.
There's like a whole bunch of them, and
Okay. So
used to put
is
them
it
on the
like,
fridge.
oh, so you got it from somewhere? So it's not like
Oh
a
yeah,
original thing. It's like many people do it.
oh yeah,
Oh, okay.
and
So what do
you
you?
can have
How do you? I mean, you move the magnets, right?
yeah. Yeah, no, I mean, you just used to use them to leave poems, or in this case, insults on people's fridges. I think there was one on my grandparents' fridge for like 5 years um, after this went in the attic. And then I was just, because I've had to do 4 poems today
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
to catch up, and I've got 2 done. I have an idea for the third, and I was like, what am I going to do for the fourth? And I didn't feel like sketching, so I was like, well, I'll sort these out while I'm talking to Novi, and then I'll have a go.
Yeah, that's a really cool idea actually. Just it's like it's somewhat reminds me of tarot card reading and stuff like that, where
Mm,
you or even the more uh, another would be me asking asking the chat to pick a number when I want to watch a Netflix movie.
mm,
Sometimes something like that. So where you don't want to want want the randomness to give you what like
yeah,
you don't want when
inspiration.
yeah, inspiration, yeah, exactly. So,
Yeah.
yeah, cool, nice. Okay. uh so Isaac Asimov,
Hmm.
born 1920. I think this is the first time so far in our series, like this is the fifth episode where we have a contemporary, as in an overlap with another author that we have already covered so far. There it has been like there more than a 20 or 30 year difference. But
Mm.
we did Arthur C. Clarke on Friday, who was born 1917.
Well, he
And
overlapped with Philip K. Dick.
Bill K. Dick
Yeah.
was, oh yes, okay, sorry, missed it.
Sorry.
Yeah, so here Isaac Asimov, born 1920,
Hmm.
uh migrated to the United States age 14.
Hmm.
So yeah, since then he lived there. um and his most, I mean, it's not, I don't know if it's most popular was is I, Robot a novel, or is it like a series, or was it a
It's a
magazine?
novel that
Uh-huh.
is part of a series of stories, but that isn't a defined series.
Okay,
Um, that became a movie.
got it. I haven't watched the movie. I mean,
It's a
it
good one. I mean,
it's
well, my family members who've read loads of Asimov said it wasn't that great, but I enjoyed it. It was a good introduction to him for me.
Hmm. I think I watched like that one scene where all the robots are standing in like a pattern, and then Will Smith
Mm,
goes through them, trying to
mm,
identify that one rogue robot. I don't know, because I don't have context, so I'm
mm.
assuming it's like all the robots are then one who is not obeying or something like that. That must be
Yeah.
the, because I'm not aware of the plot yet. I
No.
found it on Netflix, so it has been. I probably will be watching it tonight,
Hmm.
kind of like bumping it up on high on top on for priority reasons. Um, Probably should have watched it over the weekend, but I'll do it today, and maybe we'll do like a brief 2 minute discussion before
Mm.
tomorrow's episode.
I won't give
Uh,
you any spoilers then, because it's a good one.
yeah. Thank you.
Because
But
like normally I'm like, oh, and this happens, and you're like,
yeah,
but.
I have known of this movie because in 2000, this was, I also know when it came out, because at this time I was in high school, and because it's early 2000s, right? And I
Hmm.
remember this one web designing competition that I had been to, which I won. Yeah, but
Yay!
that was like 17 years ago, but still. uh, I think I won like 150 rupees,
Hmm.
which is like in your money, that's like £2 or something. But still, that's it's prize
That's
money,
so
right?
cool.
It's
Yeah,
prize money.
celebrate
Uh,
your wins.
yeah, and also a certificate, and a trophy and all that. But anyway, but the point was, I think we used, I forget the name. It was the precursor to HTML5. It was some sort of those old school web designing, because now the internet has come a long way, like
Hmm.
encryption and all that. Web pages. I think CSS. A lot of, I don't even know what it stands for, but
Mm,
a lot of advanced code goes into designing web pages now. But back then it was very simple. It was just
mm,
a web page, much like very similar to like a PowerPoint slide or something. where
Yep.
you decide where the text goes, where the image goes, and then if you add a hyperlink and you suppose you want to click on that, and then it goes to another web page. It was very simple back in the day.
It's reminding me of GeoCities,
Okay.
which was the
What's that?
website builder of choice at the
Ah, I
time.
see. Okay. No, this was more, I think, a Microsoft owned
Hmm.
web designing platform which we used back, and then so and it was a competition for high school students,
Mm.
and the topic was basically we had to design a website in the time frame given, I think 3 hours or something, and me and my partner, we chose to design a website for a movie theater in and that's how I remember, because iRobot was running at the time.
Nice.
And so our website had iRobot, it had Spider-Man 3, it had The Prisoner of Azkaban, it had Bone what's
Oh,
the
that dates it, doesn't
second
it?
Bone Jason Bourne movie. And then so basically all the 2004 movies which were very
Hmm.
popular and in theaters at the time. So we use that because it has to be a very uh, it has of the current times, it
Hmm.
looked like a very up to date website.
Yeah.
And yeah, that website won first place. so
Awesome.
so that is how I remember, and also that one movie scene which I just described. So looking
Yeah.
forward to the movie. uh
I
so
I I won't spoiler it, but the bit that sticks with me, which you will know when you see it, is the
oh,
bit in the container, and that's all I'm saying.
that's all you're saying. Okay.
It's
uh
probably not even a full scene. I think it's just like a flash of this
huh.
concept. But yeah.
I mean, the episode also did not give out any spoilers. I think
Hmm.
a couple of scenes where it showed like Will Smith interrogating a robot, or it's some they were talking something about emotions and stuff. So didn't get the full plot.
Hmm.
We'll wait. But there are a lot of other content from Isaac Asimov that we can talk about. Um,
It's somewhat problematic because iRobot is the thing I have actually only had contact with. Everything else I've had contact with by extension of watching other stuff or
so
reading other stuff.
but you have read Isaac Asimov's work.
Right, iRobot.
Oh, just that. Okay, okay,
I
cool.
mean, he wrote like something like 150
Oh yeah,
stories, I
yeah. I
think. So.
mean, he was also one of those prolific
Uh-huh.
writers who I think I have a few figures because I love
Hmm.
numbers. uh, he wrote and edited 500 books, 350 short stories,
Hmm.
and he was also big on replying to fan mail
Yeah,
apparently. And so in his lifetime, he estimated to have written 90,000 letters and postcards.
yeah.
I think the number of letters I have written, or at least handwritten, because now there are emails and stuff, so that also counts as letters because you communicate, you write back and forth. But the handwritten letters I've written in my life, I can count on my fingers.
Mm.
I think the only time I actually wrote for the sake of writing, to actual communication, not just for
Yeah.
like, I know we had those letter writing as part of English curriculum and all that in school, where you have to pretend to
Hmm.
write to a friend and all that for marks, or for to because it is part of your syllabus,
Yeah.
if that makes sense. But I meant genuinely for to communicate with a friend, or like a pen pal and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Would I think it ended with the end of the previous millennium for me. uh,
Mm.
the most I remember was when I was 8. We had to move from Mangalore to Delhi all the way that when, and then phone calls were expensive. There were no mobile, no internet, and of course, I had, because Mangalore being a small town, everybody knows everybody's home address and stuff. So for a few months at least, because at that age you kind of move on quicker
Yeah.
than when you are as an adult. So I was like, oh, I miss my friends, so I'm going to write to them. So that lasted a while. because by
Yeah.
and by the time I made new friends, of course, in the new school that I went to, and genuinely over time, you know as in
Yeah.
over time, just which probably was like 3 months or something.
It
uh
happens.
yeah, I moved on from my old
Yeah.
friends. But yeah, in those 3 or 4 months, I wrote a couple of letters. I was like, "Oh, I miss you. I miss my school, and this school sucks, and all that." Yeah. So
Yeah.
that's the extent of my letter writing. So, what about? I think you have. I am sure have written and posted more
Yeah.
letters in your
I'm
lifetime.
quite old fashioned, so
Yeah.
a lot of my friends, we for a while at uni and after uni, we were writing letters to each other, and I wrote letters to my granny and grandpa.
Hmm.
I had pen pals. Um,
I think you
I'm not
still.
very good at them anymore.
I
Like
mean,
you have.
but don't you also? I'm sure you still mail postcards, if I'm not wrong, to people.
Um, I I don't really go anywhere, but if I do, they don't really say much.
Yeah, because I received a postcard from you for my birthday last year. So
Yes.
that's I'm I went. I mean,
Oh
I
well,
was
yeah, but
guessing from there.
that's less letter writing and more writing something funny because we talk to each other online all the time. But at least you get a picture out of it, which
Yeah.
is what greetings cards really are, aren't they? So
Hmm.
they're just art as a present.
True. But even that, I think I'm sure you do it more than me, because
Yeah.
even greeting cards went out of fashion in the early 2000s, as far as I mean. Because the most I remember was, like,
Mm.
picking up a greeting card for my parents' birthdays. Me and my sister would go to this Archie's or whatever
Yeah.
was the greeting card companies of that time. I think even those faded out of existence. I don't see them
Very much
anymore.
not here. They're all over the place here.
Oh, they are okay.
It's still huge here.
Uh huh. I
I got
think.
an Easter card for the first time in ages this time,
Uh huh.
which was nice from my brother and sister in law and their kids.
But
So,
at least in India, I think greeting cards are no longer much of a thing.
mhm.
Not anymore.
It
Which
makes
is.
sense. Like we can send stuff. I mean, it's one of the things that's nice is you get that whole you get to rip the envelope open and you get something that someone else has touched. But yeah, and you get something that you can keep and you can put away and get out. But I think we send too many probably when we could be doing stuff that's recyclable. Although I did get one last year, which was good, which was printed on paper that was made from uh, recycled paper and wildflower seeds.
Hmm.
So when you were done with the card, you could plant it and it would grow.
Oh
I
yeah,
thought that was really cool.
I've heard of this. I mean, okay, that's cool. I've also heard of similar to that. I've heard of um, just like what you said, like greeting cards. I also heard of
Mm.
pens and pencils and stuff like that, which have seeds
Yeah,
at the at the end of it, other end of it. So after
yeah,
you're done, you just plant it in the soil, and then you, you're basically yeah, plant comes out. That
yeah.
generally what happens when you plant a seed.
I have to say, based on the amount of plastic stuff I pulled out just from my garden, because uh, this was a new build when we came into it 9 years ago, and we've been taking rubble and fridges and things out ever since. Um, the number of toothbrushes found was terrifying.
Hmm.
So there was a thing that was going past on the internet the other day that was all of the toothbrushes you've ever used in your lifetime still exist, and I wholeheartedly believe it, based on just what we've pulled out of this one garden.
Oh, that's sad.
Yeah,
That's sad.
so I think the next one I'm going to get is going to be wooden. But yeah,
Yeah. I mean, why aren't they wooden though? I mean, that
I
now
don't
I
know.
know, of course, yeah, it's easier. It's
Yeah,
easier to
it's
melt
probably
and
easier. It's
create. It's
probably
cheaper also.
yeah.
Yeah,
You don't have to maintain forests,
yeah,
so
yeah. That it's similar to straws, right? Plastic.
hmm
You're always like, why aren't wooden straws a thing? Because of the harm that, because just yesterday I was discussing this with my
mm.
parents, talking about plastic straws
Metal.
and the harm
I
that
think
it does.
metal's better than wood for not keeping because it's less porous. So there's like if there's bacteria and stuff.
Oh yes.
Uh,
Oh yeah. True.
for
Okay,
something
I
like
don't
a
know why
straw.
I was thinking I was thinking like the flute. Of course, it has
Mm.
holes in it, but then when I see a flute, and then it's like, okay, well, why aren't straws made of wood? So I just
Yeah.
thought of that, and yeah, what you said just makes sense. Metal, of course. I think we had a cup with a attached metal straw to it, as
Mm.
for which usually used to, for kids to sip out of.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I remember using that cup. Um, yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, going from letters to
Sorry.
greeting cards, and then recyclable and biodegradable materials, back to Isaac Asimov. We
Indeed.
we have I got a message saying hi OMG, and that's yeah, in the chat. So
Oh yay! Hello.
it's our mutual friend joining us all the way from the other end of the world. Not really. I mean, still in our the same hemisphere.
Hmm.
So
Pretty far away though.
hi,
So.
yeah, yeah.
Hello.
So okay, let's continue. So yeah. So like, I don't know how we got into. Uh, I mean, we started saying that yeah, he was a prolific writer.
Hmm.
Oh yeah, I asked you about iRobot, so that's how we got into it.
Yeah.
Yes. So in 1964, uh, one of his short stories called Nightfall
Hmm.
was voted the best short science fiction story of all time by science fiction writers of America. And it's I don't know what it is about. So, but considering, I mean, now I'm curious after I read that earlier today on Wikipedia. I'm like, I want to know what Nightfall is about, because apparently it is the best short fiction story of all
Mm.
time,
Well,
short science fiction story of all
to
time,
date at that point.
up until
Yeah.
1964. Yes. um, but so let's I mean, okay, I think it makes more sense to start with talking about the three laws, because we have it in the title, and then we haven't yet addressed it.
Hmm.
So this is from the episode, so if I mean, I'm going from what they told me.
Hmm.
If you have anything to add or correct me, you please do that.
Hmm.
So I'll go first, and I'll start. I mean, this apparently the three laws as put forward by Isaac Asimov in
Hmm.
one of his works, and
That developed
he's
throughout his works.
oh, okay, okay.
It's,
So
he didn't set out to write these laws. He wrote loads of stories, and his editor went, "You do know that you have created a world where they operate by three laws," and that became the
mhm,
three laws that he wrote by after that
okay,
point.
okay. So the first law is a robot may not injure a human being, or through an action allow a human being to come to harm.
Hmm.
Makes sense. I mean, we are creating the robot, so we don't want that him or her or it to harm us or backstab us or whatever. The second rule was the robot must obey the commands given by a human being
Hmm.
unless it contradicts rule one.
Hmm.
Uh, that also obviously makes sense. The third rule was the robot should let no harm come to itself or to other robots unless it contradicts rule 1 and 2.
Hmm.
So that was those are the three laws or the three rules he went by. But he was also, wise, even though they were the rules that he uh like in okay, I think this was in the story Run Around in 1942 that they
Yes.
talk about, in which the robot called Speedy, uh, on some remote planet where they're
Hmm.
mining, they send it out to gather selenium, or one of the
Yeah.
elements that the humans in a story are mining. And the robot does not come back, and then they, for 5 hours or something, and they will go out and try looking for what, like,
Hmm.
they're curious what happened to humans. And they realize that the robot is basically stuck, or like the stuff, like how we in computer parlance, I think we say my computer has crashed. So the robot is
He's
basically,
stuck in an infinite logic loop.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, basically that's the same thing that happens, right? When
yeah,
your programs and you get those infinite delays, where it's like you this yeah, the loop that you're talking about. So
yeah,
they realize that it's going through that, it's stuck in this loop between rules 3 and 4, sorry, 2 and 3.
yeah,
I don't know why I said 3 and 4.
yeah. So
Like an
it has to obey the orders given to it, but it
yeah,
can't create harm to itself, and that
yeah. So
it
it's
can't
like it wants
logic
to,
its way out
yeah,
of
so there's
this.
that dilemma of self preservation, but also
Mm,
obeying the command given to it. uh, so it's like, so he wrote, it's his laws that he put forth through
mhm.
his works, but then he's also, he's also pointing out the flaw
Yeah,
in
he's
in
conscious of
that.
the
He's
contradictory
conscious
nature.
of, yeah, exactly. um and it's I think that's just one example. In more
Hmm.
than one of his works, he pointed out the flaws and the need for, I mean, also one of the things is like they said that during his childhood, he grew up reading on stuff that was mostly anti robot, or
Yeah,
anti, what's the other term, I mean, synonyms for robot. It's not really artificial
Android,
intelligence at that point. uh okay,
Android,
yeah,
machine.
android, yeah, and yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, where most of the science fiction, or at least the ones that he was
Mm.
uh,
It was a
exposed
big
to.
theme.
Yeah,
It was a big theme. It was a big sort of 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s.
yeah. Oh, Mina
They were
says
big.
automaton. Okay, thank you.
Automaton. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
yeah, they
also
were
that. uh
obsessed with the idea of this big metal man that can't be stopped.
yeah, so it's a,
Technology gone mad. I
yeah.
guess there was a lot of changing technology at the time, and we'd seen a lot of advances in particularly in weapons. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so they had this sort of fear that it could go wrong.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
And they were all, I mean, they were human shaped, but they were always sort of faceless. And I
Mm.
suppose what Asimov did was give them a face, give them a
Mm.
personality.
Mm-hmm. So
Uh,
they like, for, but then I like, we already discussed this on Friday with Arthur C. Clarke, and how he was able to imagine, because I can't, I mean, it's hard for me to imagine the 30s and 40s people talking about robots when are even the more, we are nowhere close to the modern computer, and
mm,
uh all that. We are still in that, the most basic of, uh again, automaton, or
yeah.
android and all that,
Well, I
where
mean,
it's mostly, there's almost no code involved, right? It's all
yeah,
mechanics. it's
clockwork.
it's mostly, yeah, yeah,
But then
exactly.
we'd had
So
clockwork and
it does not
automata
have a brain of its
for
own
over a
yet.
thousand years. No, but you can program stuff in terms of. I think on our other podcast we talked about the water clocks
Hmm.
in the Arabian palaces
Yeah,
um, that are maybe 1200, 800 years old, and they could play music. So it's an early form of programming um, where you have a sort of sheet of metal and there are spaces or not spaces, and I suppose that's an early form of binary
yeah,
because the question is yes or no, and that tells which things to move when and what to what music to play.
yeah, yeah.
So I suppose you've got coding, but you haven't really recognized it as such yet.
Yes.
So I see what you mean, but yeah.
No, but I meant, where exists the possibility of that technology turning upon us, is what I cannot imagine, or I find it hard, because it's so simple, right? Because it's
Mm,
just following steps that we laid down for it to go through. it's very simple. There's no dilemma there where we go, oh, it's doing something that it was not supposed to.
Well, the
uh,
human imagination has always looked for demons, and I suppose any new idea of technology, um, I suppose you could think of it as a suit of armor with a mind,
hmm,
as we have that concept that
yeah,
it just sort of goes wrong. But at the same time, you've got we're most of the way through the Industrial Revolution. We've got loads of different kinds of machines that run according to our instructions
yeah,
that occasionally, well, quite frequently actually, kill people or hurt them
yeah,
by going wrong, by having a breakdown and something goes wrong.
yeah,
So I suppose it's not that great a leap to go, well, if we make one that's shaped like a human to do tasks for us, it's going to go wrong at some point.
hmm,
And how
yeah,
far do
got
you
it,
trust
yeah,
that?
yeah. It could also
Because
be one
humans
of
go
those,
wrong.
like what you just said kind of got me thinking. Also one of those things where it's a machine, but and
Hmm.
also, even though it's built by us, it's a lot stronger than us, right? So
Yes.
it's one of those things where there is an off switch, of course, but
Hmm.
once it's set on its task, and once it's on, and then if you cannot get to that off switch, it's like it's very
Yeah.
hard to control.
Yeah. And
Because
then is the problem that it cannot deviate from its programming, or is the
yeah,
problem that it
yeah,
has
yeah,
deviated from its
yeah,
programming? And then
yeah,
you get into like the Space 2001 problems with HAL.
hmm, hmm, hmm.
Yeah.
True. Yeah, okay, okay, that's cool. I mean, but it's still a lot. I mean, it's amazing for me to
Hmm.
think of all these people in back then in the 30s and 40s coming up with stuff which we I mean with which became a reality after the 60s.
Hmm.
So yeah, yeah, I mean, I think I'm all talked a lot about it on Friday with Arthur C. Clarke about how
Hmm.
he was able to imagine what. So Isaac Asimov and even H.G. Wells and all these people, Philip K. Dick also. Uh,
The other, it's just struck me, the other thing that we could have given us this idea with this shape of idea is
hmm.
puppets, which are, I mean, I like puppets, but they are inherently creepy. And
Yeah.
maybe there's that idea that it's a very big puppet and
Hmm.
it's very strong, because we make machines to be strong, to do the
Yeah.
things that we
Yeah.
don't want to or we can't do.
Yeah.
So yeah, so maybe it's a puppet thing, because you get the concept of the uncanny valley, which is why we don't really give, you have to make robots most, or androids mostly humanish,
Hmm.
for us to well, for more people to like them,
Yeah.
because as discussed, humans will pack bond with a rumba if left alone for too long. Um, but
Yeah.
yeah, if you make them too human, it really freaks us out.
Yeah. Also,
Um,
I think the other reason why there was this increasing dislike was because of this fear that robots would eventually make us would replace us in the
yeah,
workforce,
yeah,
because there was increasing use of robotic arms in the assembly line, uh, when in manufacturing industries,
mm,
where when you have to just place something into something else for all day.
yeah,
You don't need a human. You can just have a robotic arm to do that, picking something up and just placing
yeah.
something somewhere else.
I mean,
uh,
and that's not, and that's we've had that with each technological leap, in using machines in the workforce. The Oh, it's gone out of my head. I mean, there's the Luddites, but there's also, I hope that I am talking about the Luddites when I say that there was a, when they brought in the Jacquard looms, all the weavers in Britain rioted,
hmm,
and they would use their shoes and anything to hand to break the machines. I think this is Ludditism, um, because they were literally starving now because they couldn't work, because they're extremely skilled labor
yeah.
that fed entire communities could now be done in half the time by paying one person to stand at the loom.
Hmm,
So it made a lot of money, but it also made a lot of people hungry.
yeah.
So yeah,
Yeah.
that
uh,
threat is a very real one.
Mina says robots would make us humans really lazy. I don't think that is a problem.
Like in Wall-E.
I Because humans, I mean, it's a conservation of energy thing, right?
Mm.
If given the option, we would prefer that not working. But at least
But it's
I,
not
I
necessarily healthy.
I mean, not speaking for all humans, but I, being a human, I would not mind it. Uh, but it's more of a, uh, it's more of the what you said, as in, being harmful, because it's detrimental to your job or whatever is earning the bread, it's costing you your source of income and stuff like
Mm.
that more. uh, but what
Even
what what
even
what was
though,
it about Wally? Because I kind of forgot.
oh,
Oh, yeah, okay, the
what Mila
humans
said
in the
about
spine.
laziness.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay, okay,
Given the
got it,
option,
got
we
it,
will
got it.
turn into basically sausages.
Yeah, okay. The humans in that, I watched it a long time ago. Okay, the humans
Yeah.
in that movie, all are all, very okay.
But
They
our
because of,
muscles have atrophied over
yeah,
generations of just not doing anything,
yeah,
just not quite, not
not
even
moving, basically,
not
just,
moving, but
yeah,
not
just
questioning,
sitting and, I see. Okay.
having to relearn. I mean, having even in that movie, having to relearn that they are surrounded by stars, which you'd think if you lived on a spaceship you wouldn't be able to not see, but they've just never looked beyond their screens.
Okay, yeah, true.
It's
Wow.
considering it's a Disney movie, it's an extraordinarily powerful one in terms of science
Yeah.
fiction.
Yeah, it watched it. Okay, yeah, yes, I remember now. True, true, true. Yeah. Okay, so that's, I think, he what was it about spine? Okay.
Oh, the robot that can position screws in spinal
Yeah,
operations.
that was a prophecy, right? I mean, that the prophecy
Mm.
part of, the, assembly line, and because
Mm.
it's the future that he predicted, which is has become a reality, at least was a
Mm.
reality in 2012. Of this, they use the example of spine assist
Mm-hmm.
in surgeries related to where it there is the need for, precision in within millimeters of,
Mm-hmm.
uh, the what's that called? They need to work on it's the
Spinal
spinal
surgery.
cord, the spinal cord. Okay,
Yeah.
forgetting medical terms. Yeah, so, they're
Yeah.
within millimeters, and then, they use the, help of the robot, where they do scan the cat scans, was
Mm-hmm.
it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And the robot kind of, helps them by generating the path they need to follow,
Yeah.
so as not to, harm the spinal cord, and,
Yeah.
do their, so that is good.
That's very
That
cool.
those are like that I think was, for me, that was the first. This is the first in our series of, authors that we have, come across, or we have been covering, where the author is like, no, guys, it's not all bad, and, we can
Yeah.
actually, that he was able to see the potential of,
Well, to an extent, so is Arthur C. Clarke, because of he
oh
saw
yes,
the
Arthur C.
potential of
Clarke also.
communications.
True.
But I would agree that he's much more optimistic in general. He looks and he sees, he goes, and I don't know if this is just a direct response to reading so much of the "this is where the robot kills us" fiction,
Yeah.
or if it's that he genuinely did. He was more of an optimist in general. I mean, it's probably a combination of the two. Um, but yeah, the logical
Yeah.
conclusion is not always the darkest timeline.
Yeah. Yeah. But that when I watched the that part of the episode, where, and, I was genuinely very impressed that there is, I mean, when I think of artificial intelligence these days, of course, there's the digital assistant, there's Google, and there's Siri, and all that, which
Yeah,
is fine. You have an assistant in your phone, which the most it does is it saves you time of typing and asking,
yeah,
if the search engine or whatever. But when and then the other stuff that like the the what's that thing called that I think you just mentioned, of that thing, that disk like vacuum which we have, which people
Oh,
have
the
in
Roomba.
the, yeah,
The
exactly,
Roomba.
this, yeah, that, which which also is some sort of AI, because
Mhm.
it's autonomous, it works on
Yeah.
its own, you don't have to give it directions. uh, but then to use it for, in the medical field, and that's coming a long way. Um and
Yeah. One of the other things they were talking about in the program is they created robots that help people with do not just general exercise but physio, um, which I immediately went, but I don't really. I'd rather there be a human that I
Hmm,
would interact with. And then they were talking about the uses, and they said, well, particularly with it helps with Alzheimer's patients, and it helps with people who have uh, whose autism is more pronounced, should we say? Because it's not. Yeah, I was going to say whose autism is worse, but it's not a worse thing because autism isn't a bad thing.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
just a different thing.
yeah,
Um, and I thought, well, yeah, actually, that's really good because you're not being required to engage with an emotion that you find distracting or hard to see or uncomfortable. You
yeah,
can just get on with it. And actually, yeah, that's really good that we should move forward to a world where there are multiple solutions.
yeah.
It made me think of another film, which is hard to say the title of because it's Robot and Frank. And it's really hard not to say Robot and Frank. And then people go, "What, a Robot and Frank? What's that film about?"
Okay,
And
now
you're
I
like,
got it.
"No, it's not an anime set in the Second World War.
Yeah,
It's called Robot and Frank." It's
yeah.
really good. It's about a guy
Took me a
who's
couple of moments for me as well to
yeah.
get what you meant. Okay, got it. I
It's
see it now. Okay.
it's about an older gentleman who is suffering from dementia and Alzheimer's, and he's given by his family this robotic assistant.
Hmm.
Um, and the added complication is the assistant is programmed to help him
Yeah.
and therefore to promote activities that increase his ability to retain information, because stimulation and interaction
Hmm.
really helps some
Yeah.
patients
Yeah.
with Alzheimer's. But the things that help this guy um, are the hobbies he used to have. And one of the hobbies he used to have was a master jewel thief.
That's a
So,
hobby.
well, it was his profession more, I would say,
Yeah.
more of a hobby now.
Yeah.
And it's where that goes. But it's a really interesting film.
Hmm.
It's a really powerful film as well, actually, and it's extremely well shot. And I always try and tell people about it, and they're like, "What? Wait, hang on, Robot and Frank," and then we go off down that pathway.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Anyway, so Isaac Asimov was, of course, one of the first people who kind of uh, put forth saying, it's, yes, robots in the future will be more complex than, or at least have the potential to be more complex than the human brain,
mm,
uh, but also potentially outliving us as well.
yeah,
I think in his later stories he wrote about it. I mean, he had extensive, I think he will come to that in a while.
yeah,
But also throughout his writing he had this love hate relationship that he addressed with, this technology, artificial
mm,
intelligence and all that, wherein it's like, yeah, they will assist us, but then they also have this, you know, potential to, uh, on, once in a while, to disobey, and
hmm
maybe make their own decisions, and the consequences that follow it. um
because of the way that we have instructed them,
yeah,
and because of these laws
yeah,
that were put in place for safety, but
yeah.
aren't necessarily the best.
Hmm.
And yeah, and the consideration of the idea of when do you have, as an automaton, when do you have autonomy as a person? When
Yeah,
are you allowed
yeah,
to make decisions that um, no longer limit your freedom? Because
yeah,
if we were to apply the three laws of robotics to humans, that would be in some ways, that is a cornerstone of our society. You know, try not to cause harm to others. Take the instructions of the state as long as they don't contradict the first one. But your safety is not as important as other people's safety. Like, if we tried to apply that to humans, there would be an uproar. So why are we allowed to apply it to robots? And the answer is because we don't consider them sentient or conscious. But what if AI develops to a point where it is sentient and conscious? What is our responsibility to this creature, this living creature with a sentient mind that we have given feelings because we wanted to give it feelings, but then has become inconveniently alive? What is the point where we go, actually, no, we need to accept that they have as much right to be here as we do. We can't control their reproduction process. We can't control when they are shut down. And if that's true, what if they don't want us to be around anymore?
Mina says there are pretty basic rules to follow. That's true. I mean, at the time of Isaac Asimov, but then we also need to admit that AI is currently in today's age, AI is much more complex than, it's past those three rules at this stage. And like what you're saying, as in, at what point does autonomy become a thing? Like, of course, this episode is kind of 9 years outdated, but we have seen, I think, was that in one of those nations in the Middle East, in West Asia, where there was a android that got citizenship. Was it UAE or Saudi Arabia? I'm not sure.
That.
Maybe we can Google it later. But I'm pretty sure there one of was that a female looking android? Do you remember, which got
I don't really
citizenship?
remember. I seem to recall it was one of those things where I looked at it and I thought, well, they've given this robot citizenship, but they've given it citizenship based on, isn't it cute that this robot has citizenship?
Yeah, I know.
Rather
but,
than,
but it's like it sets a precedent, right? Where the robot is able it can, I mean, it lives just like a human. It does all the things that a human is able to do. And
but does it choose to? And that's the
of
question.
course, that's the question. But it's like, but and it also is capable of making its own decisions and stuff. But at what stage do we hold it accountable should something go wrong, right? Like the thing with self-driving cars, we have had a couple of accidents already, I think. Also, was it last year or the year before that, involved the first instance of a casualty with self-driving cars? And like, whose fault is it? So like, who do we arrest now? I mean, should we put the car in jail or what? And
I suppose in some ways this is moving towards, I realized as we were talking that I actually have read more of Asimov than I think I have, which, I mean, given how much he wrote, is not surprising. But he wrote this series of books called the Foundation series, which is based on the concept that you can use human behavior and statistics and mathematics to model what will happen in the future. I think he calls it psychohistory. And in the Foundation novels, the character initially realizes he can predict the fall of the empire that they are currently living through. And then after this, there will be 30,000 years of chaos. And if he takes certain actions, he can make that 30,000 years 1,000 years. But the predictions are based on humanity as it is. So as soon as you start making predictions, that changes things. So if you're looking at self-driving cars, at what point does the predictability of the circumstances that the car can make decisions on change by other people's actions? So there'll be a point where you can go, okay, yes, the self-driving car made a mistake, but did it make a mistake because we programmed it wrong, or did it make a mistake because something happened that it wasn't expecting?
Yeah.
And is the something that happened that it wasn't expecting because we've programmed it wrong, or we
Of
haven't
course, it
programmed it
comes back to
enough,
that.
or because we've programmed it, people are taking different decisions.
Yeah.
So if you were to, the example that comes to mind is one of my mum's colleagues. The day after he passed his driving test, he was waiting at a traffic light, and he bumped into a person on the crossing because they were talking to a bunch of people for 5 minutes and then stepped out backwards without looking. And they stepped out backwards without looking because they're a police officer. And I think they thought, well, no one's going to run into a police officer. That's crazy. So they had decided, based on particular inputs from society, that it didn't matter if they stepped out in front of the car. So I think we're going to have to come to a point probably where we go, so the self-driving cars with inbuilt safety mechanisms, people will rely on that and just walk out in front of them. And what if there's not enough time for them to stop? What if the conditions are wrong? Is that the self-driving car's fault, or is it the person who's chosen to walk out in front of them because they think it's safe? And of course, that's the genius of Asimov, is he goes, what point are we on this? How do we make that decision? And he forces you to think about it in increments. So like with Speedy, and like with Sonny in iRobot, he goes, all right, so we've created this. What do we do now? How do we interact? What's our next choice? Around this technology that is becoming self-aware, or this technology that is becoming increasingly able to predict. Again, it's the joy of science fiction, is it makes you question yourself.
But this, I mean, okay, I'm going to go briefly off topic because it's somewhat related, but there is no robots or technology involved in this. This kind of reminded me of a video I was watching yesterday about the COVID, right? It's the big. I've forgot the law or the method or the person in the video was trying to scientifically justify, but uh, the problem that they were addressing is, a year ago, the same time, April or March, April 2020, was the fear was like at the scale of 100 at COVID, and the cases were like 10, right? And coming and to April 2021, where the fear is at a 10 right now, and but the cases are escalating. So he explained it based on the scientific method. It's similar to, and the analogy that he used was when these safety regulations started coming in cars, like the anti-braking system, or airbags and seat belts and stuff started coming in. People, it's like that, when you reduce the risks, you no when there's more, you or when you feel more like you are safer, you tend to take more risks. That is the thing that he was trying to explain. It's like when you'd assume that where there are when you have seat belts, and when there are airbags and stuff, all these regulations that came into in the 70s and 80s, when you'd see fewer accidents, but that wasn't the case. The number of deaths decreased, but the number of accidents actually started increasing.
Because people were taking more risks.
Exactly. So it's like now with this COVID situation, where there are people getting vaccinated, but then it's like, because people are getting vaccinated, even though I am not yet vaccinated, I feel bolder. I feel more, to emboldened is the, I don't know if bolder was the word. To
Boulder is correct.
Is correct. Okay.
There's an archaeological joke that will help you to remember it, is that someone goes, "That's a rock," and you go, "Boulder." Then they go, "That's a rock."
So I feel again bolder to
Mhm.
step out, even though I'm not vaccinated.
No.
I'm like, others are vaccinated, or at
Yeah.
least now everybody, we are more immune as a community and all that.
Yeah.
So I'm more I'm more likely to take risks
I'm
now, a
very
year
conscious
later,
of this at
and
the moment.
end up
Yeah.
with the virus.
Because the incidence is going down.
Yeah,
So in some ways it is a bit safer, but people are taking more risky behaviours in general.
yeah,
Because our country's on the roadmap for opening up Britain again.
yeah,
Um, Small businesses, beauty businesses, pubs, and restaurants are opening up again today.
yeah.
And everyone's like, yeah, let's get to the pub. And I'm like, but okay, one thing, having the vaccination doesn't mean you're not going to get it.
Correct.
It
Yeah,
just means it's going to be significantly less severe
yeah,
for most people, which is wonderful because that's what we want. We
yeah,
want to drop the severity level. If you can feel a bit rubbish for a couple of days and get over it,
yeah.
and we can get that to be what it happens to, what happens to all of us, that's wonderful. That's what we're aiming for.
Hmm.
We long since passed the point where we would be able to eradicate it. If governments had gone, all right, no, we'll shut it down now, we could have eradicated it, but by this time last year it was impossible.
Yeah.
But I think it's going to be. I think people are going, oh, we've got the vaccine, so we can behave the way we used to, and it's not there yet.
Yeah.
It's not going to be there. I'm expecting it's not going to be there at least for another year. I am overcautious, I think, probably, but at the same time, I'm watching some of the people on my newsfeed going, have repeatedly watched people on my newsfeed over the last year go, oh, well, it's safe again. I can go out and do the thing.
Yes.
And I'm like, you don't understand pathogens.
Yeah.
You just don't understand.
Just because you have been vaccinated does not stop you from being a carrier.
Exactly.
You can carry the virus and spread it to other people.
Just because you're wearing a mask doesn't mean that you can stick your hands on something someone else has licked.
Yeah.
Or one of the things that I often consider is going to the swimming pool. The private pools that because I got a huge discount, so I was going to a private pool for a year. I feel like they would have most of it covered, but despite the fact that there is chlorine in the water, people are breathing in that space. It's a warm space. There is so many opportunities for virus and bacteria to survive in that space.
Yeah.
It's not something I would feel comfortable doing for so much longer. And yeah, if you imply that logic to automata or automated machinery in the way that Asimov is looking at it, you go, actually, yeah. The problem isn't the fact that the robots go insane. The problem is that we go insane.
Yeah. No, it's the how we digressed. I mean, came to this where we are talking about COVID right now is I think it was a reaction to what you said. It's like with the self-driving cars and stuff. It's the reaction to something else where you said how we react. I think you talked about in case of an accident. It's like you said, based on it's similar. It's like something it's taking place, and then we react differently to it, which we hadn't foreseen. Is that right? Yeah.
Yes.
It's similar to that, right? With the seat belts and the airbags and stuff. We implemented those so that we would be safer, but then we didn't foresee that because people have seat belts, would make people drive more recklessly and get into more accidents that they wouldn't if they didn't have we wouldn't be wearing seat belts. They would be more careful. So it's the same with self-driving cars and stuff, which it's like we create problems which we haven't foreseen yet. And then
as
we
in
are
the
like
Foundation series.
What?
It's in the Foundation series by Isaac Asimov.
No, I don't know. You have to tell me about it.
No, that was what I was talking about before.
I see. Okay.
In that with the prediction the mathematics of prediction. You can predict to a certain extent until you can't predict anymore because people have changed their behavior because of the predictions. It's sort of a paradox. It's a
Yeah.
creeping paradox.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was what I was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, Mina asks, do you think iRobot did justice to the novel it was based on? Okay, I haven't watched the movie. uh, Lauren has, but
I would
she's not
say
giving me spoilers because
I would
I'm
say it did to an
okay.
extent.
Okay.
I'd say it did for the audience of the time. Because when I was a teenager when I watched it for the first time, my mum and my uncle had read it or not possibly not when it first came out, but they read it when they were teenagers. So they already had a relationship with the book, and they were like, well, it's all right, but it doesn't really, it doesn't do it justice. But as a person coming to it for the first time, I went, this is really interesting. I should read the book, and I enjoyed both. So I think for me it did it justice, but for someone who'd come to it first, it didn't. It was a bit too Hollywood. There
the
was
novel
some
came out in
elements
the, he wrote it in the 50s, right? Mid 50s or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, well, it would have been around when they were children. So,
Yeah. So, but no, my point was, at least I think the movie is more like a modern adaptation. It's not set in the 50s. It's more in the 2000s.
Yeah. Well, it's set in a slightly more futuristic, but his was set in a more slightly futuristic world as well.
Got it.
But yeah.
Yeah, I always forget that. I always assume that the stories written, authors write their stories, which always the story takes in. But no,
but not
it's science fiction. Yeah, you can always write it in the past, in the future.
It's the future.
Yeah.
I think
I don't know.
it reminds me very strongly of the Dark World film, the Gunslinger film that came out last year before, which I loved. I watched it and I thought, oh, this is really good. And everyone I know who's read the Stephen King's Gunslinger series has gone, but it's not the right. No, it's an interesting story based on it, but it's like fan fiction to them.
Yeah.
And I think maybe in terms of iRobot, I think there's an element of that if you had read it first. Same with Howl's Moving Castle. I think both the book and the film are superb, but they're not the same story necessarily. You could make an argument for The Hobbit. the cinematic
those books as well.
I know they're on your list.
But you can ask Meena though. What do you think about iRobot? Yeah, if you can tell us in the comment, in the chat. That was about. Okay, I think coming to the prophecy part of iRobot, I don't know, because I don't know what I don't know the full plot yet. But does it talk about the emotional attachment to the robot, or
I can't answer your question without giving you a spoiler.
I see. Okay. Anyway, so their prophecy.
Yes, but an extension of that as well.
I see.
So not just our emotional attachment; it's their emotional attachment.
Yeah. So I'm going to watch the movie tonight, and we'll talk about briefly at the start of tomorrow's stream. But at least in the scenario, or at least the visuals based on the case that they discussed in the episode, was the iRobot created tank, the mini tank, with the US Army in Afghanistan. They said was like how the soldiers were so emotionally attached to that little robot, which gets into an accident, or with a landmine or something, and which kind of, I think it breaks it down, or it gets into an accident basically, and
it was a mine-seeking robot, and it was on the last mission it was destroyed by a mine.
And then but the soldier or the soldiers went out of their way to retrieve the robot, or at least whatever was the rest of it was remained of it, in the hope that it will, they can, or the technical team can revive it, or get it back, restore it, because that's for the people who aren't there or who aren't in their position. It will be like it's just a robot or it's just a device.
Yeah.
Just get, I'm sure they'll make another, or give
But
you
it's their
another.
it's their team member.
Exactly.
It's humans have this huge capacity for empathy
Yeah.
with not just with animals,
With anything basically.
I mean, I swear at the tap if it comes on too hot. So
Yeah.
you start interacting with them. There's a film called City of Ember, which is a wonderful steampunk science fiction kids sort of teenage kids
Yeah.
film based on a series of books.
Okay.
What's her name? The author's name has gone from my brain. Really good, really worth checking out. The film they made was very good. There is one moment completely inconsequential to the story at all. There is nothing. There is no mention of it in the book. Some of the people have essentially sort of pets, robots they've made, and they're all tethered to the wall. And there's this one, and it's just, I think it's a bin on wheels, and it's just been bimbling around in the background. And there's a chase sequence, and it gets knocked over, and so it's stuck upside down. And for like the next 5 minutes, I'm like, but go back and rescue it. And it's not even mentioned. It's just there.
Yeah.
No one interacts with this thing except to push it over, but its helplessness is like tangible.
Yeah.
As far as we know, there is no AI in this world. It's a bin on wheels that has been made to bimble around so that it makes people feel like they have a pet.
Yeah.
But you have that empathy and sympathy for.
I get it. I mean, in my own life, I can see to give you an example, I think the first bicycle I ever owned was, of course, the little tiny bicycle it was the bicycle on which I learned to ride. Right, it started off with those two side wheels, and the little bicycle that little kids learn to balance on, and it's tiny. Okay, I don't know how to describe it. It's a tiny bicycle.
I know what you mean. Like
Yeah.
really
Okay,
small
you got it.
Yeah.
So that was the bicycle, and like I already said, right, at the age of 8, when I was moving from Mangalore to Delhi, my parents were, maybe I don't know what happened, but they wanted to get rid of it. Maybe they didn't want to move so much stuff because it's a long distance, and so yeah, we sold it, and I was very attached to that bicycle, right? So I remember when the new owner came to pick it up, right? And I like, let me ride that bicycle to the end of the driveway. So I just wanted to give that final goodbye sort of thing. I don't know. I can't explain it. The feeling. I just wanted to, like, I'll ride it to your car, right? And then you can take it. So I wanted to do that final ride because
like
I was
final
that
farewell.
final farewell. Yeah, but it's just a cycle. I think it has more to do with even though they don't have any sort of intelligence, but they assist you, right? They help you with your daily work, not just your, like, people tend to give cars, they name their cars, or like you said, you talk to your tap, or just stuff like this. It's like these tiny devices, they help you with your work. So you, even subconsciously, you tend to have these inner conversations, or somehow you even without intending to, you kind of get attached to these stuffs. And
there's a sentimentality attachment,
yeah,
or a familiarity perhaps.
Yeah. So when they're at the end of their life, you just don't want, you kind of have this feeling like, oh, you stuck it out with me through all this, and I'm sad to see you go.
I suppose it's we're considering getting rid of a greenhouse, which was my great uncle Ted's greenhouse that my great auntie Pearl, when he passed away and we had an allotment, she gave it to us, so we brought it up, and it's too big for this garden basically. And we've got the glass in one part of the garden and the frame in the other, and we used part of it to make the cold frame, and we were like, well, it is a complete greenhouse. I mean, someone could be using this. And Neil said, why we could maybe think about finding someone to use it. And I was like, yeah, no, that's a really good idea, and it makes complete sense. And there was a tiny part of me going, but I'll miss it. And it's ridiculous. It's never been up in this garden. It's 10 years it's been behind our shed.
Yeah.
And it's a greenhouse. It's a metal frame. It has no feelings. And I'm like, but we'll have to make sure someone will give it a good home and not mistreat it. And I'm like, what's wrong with me?
Yeah.
But I suppose this is the root of Toy Story.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, that's exactly what I meant. I mean, yeah, that's true.
I'm going to have to sign off in about 5 minutes, incidentally, because with starting later, I have something booked in to get to.
Okay.
I'm just keeping an eye on time.
Yeah. Okay. So I think the like last couple of minutes couple of topics is the 1976 novel by Centennial Man. We already discussed this, brought up that question about autonomy, citizenship, and all that. But the core point, one of the prophecies which hasn't yet become a reality, is the merging,
the fusion of humanity
of android and human. I think it is there in much of science fiction already. Where do you think
there's always a cyborg?
Cyborg, exactly.
Yeah.
I was looking for that word, which wasn't coming to my head. But what are your thoughts on it? Do you see it becoming a reality?
Well, I think in some ways it already is a reality.
But not in the terms like, I mean, yeah, people are having those arms,
prosthetic
arms and legs already.
Yeah.
But we are able to. But it's like a limb, external limb that is being attached, right?
Well, to an extent, there was a professor while I was at university that my husband had more contact with than I did. I don't know if it was. I don't think he was a lecturer at our university. I think it was in another one that he kept reading about him, or he read his blog, and he had an implant in his arm, which he used to communicate. Like he could use for various applications, and I always think of him when I think of transhumanism, because he was using it to send emails just on his arm.
Wow.
It was really experimental stuff that he was working on himself, or just to send a text to his wife to say, "Oh, I've landed safely," and he'd just like tap his arm and go, I'm safe or whatever.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
It's sort of a proof of concept, but that would be about the time when did I graduate uni? 2010, 2011, second time. So that's 10 years ago. There must have been advances by now.
Yeah.
We've got. I mean, there's implants where you can have a hearing aid. A hearing aid makes you technically a cyborg.
Yeah. I think even Stephen Hawking was an example of these. Yeah. Like it's an assistant, but then it's kind of
part of you.
More, it's part of you. So it's more direct. Yeah.
A few years ago, I was reading about scientists who were going into particular atmospheric conditions, or doing volcanologists doing work on volcanoes. If they would have an implant with a sensor that would warn them when danger was coming, that they should get out, and things like that. Or if you were skydiving, and you could have a sensor that would measure your vitals as you did it.
Yeah.
Things like that.
Yeah.
So I suppose we're not.
Oh yeah, people already have those pacemakers and stuff. So that's also another example. Yeah, I don't know why I thought
like
okay.
We're sort of in a really unobtrusive part. We are beginning to move that way,
true.
The fact that it seems so natural to us that we can't even think of these examples means that we're well on our way to getting there.
Yeah, but I always think of the Spider-Man 2, the Doctor Octopus, where it's like, at what point does the cyborg, the android take over, and then you're like, we went through that. Like
considering you think about science fiction being deep and serious and asking these big questions, but it's often the sillier bits, like Futurama or the second Spider-Man movie or the Avengers films, that really that bring those questions to the fore, I suppose, to a wider audience. And I was just thinking, because the Spider-Man 2 movie is one of the movies that I really enjoyed, and I have the most argument with for the ending. Have you seen it?
I have. Yeah.
To stop a hydrogen reaction, hydrogen oxygen
drown
reaction.
it in the river, right?
that has already established and will not stop. You put it in a source of H2O. What? I'm sorry. No, that's not going to stop it. You've given it a source. But yeah, so I watched that, and everyone else went, "That's a really good movie," and I went, "But it's wrong." But yeah, it was good.
I think I never gave it that much thought, but you're right. Now you've got me thinking.
This is the gift of science fiction. Every film you watch from now on, you'll be going, "But hang on."
Yeah. But yeah, okay. Before we end though, the last of course we cannot not talk about the last question. Isaac Asimov's 1956 story. I haven't read it. I have it open on my tab right now. The last question.
Yeah.
I'm going to go back and read it because I found it on Princeton University's some website. I don't know how I just googled the last question and I found it. So I'm curious. I'll be reading it tonight. But have you read it though?
I haven't, but I have. I wrote an essay about it.
I see.
But
basically, I think it dwells upon the
which is like, I have to say, so I haven't read it, but I have written an essay on it. It's exactly like all of the time when you're at school and you have to write a book report. Yeah. I read the Wikipedia article and I wrote an essay about it.
I'm not going to say anything because I'll be incriminating myself,
in advance,
my high school self. So I don't want to. I don't want to talk about my book reports. Let's not do that.
As an adult, I'm more like to phone it in than I used to be.
Yeah, but I think the last question talks about the eventual possibility of artificial intelligence outliving man, and what they will be doing, because we are no longer around, humanity, and of course the robots and artificial all these stuff that we created has outlived us. And how would they be living amongst themselves? Like, what kind of society will they form, or how would they communicate, and what would
will they one day have the desire to create something like androids for them, or humans?
Would they recreate? Would they follow our model and do something of their own, or what would happen? Of course, we'll not be around. It's something that we'll never know, because we don't. It's
interesting because neither of us have read it. We've both read the Wikipedia article and have based all our things on that. Yes. What I took from it,
but it's an interesting, right? It's like everybody can have their own take on it. Though.
Yeah.
And that's the beauty of it.
Well, I mean, that's the joy of science fiction and fiction in general, but particularly science fiction. But I took from it. What if they become the gods? What if? The thing that I took from it was, is our universe the universe after theirs, where they went, shall we restart the universe? Which I suppose is a very Battlestar Galactica way of viewing it. You have these cycles where you go through creation and destruction, and the program, the instigator that we think of as God or a god is neither benevolent or malevolent. It's just there. It just occasionally, or is it benevolent? And it keeps going, but why are you doing it wrong?
That's also, I think it's similar. It's this one that Wall-E also, right? I mean, it's like it does. Wall-E is left behind, and goes around. It's what was it? I don't remember the plot of the entire. But it was a cleaning robot, right? Supposed to clean and stuff. Was it
a trash compactor?
Trash. I see. Yeah. So it's like it's going on about its job, but which it does not need to.
It's continuing its last instruction, but I suppose Wall-E is one of those robots like Sonny in iRobot you will find, who perhaps has reached beyond, who's created within itself flexible thought, which throughout the movie of Wall-E you see it creating in others. So you see even the robot that types the door code, Wall-E waves at it, and then when it just goes, huh. And then when he comes out, it goes, because it's really excited in its program. It's learned to wave, and you see another one that starts questioning its behavior, and like the little mop robot who.
I think the robot also falls in love.
Mo.
finds love or something.
Yeah,
Is it?
yeah.
There's a
Companionship,
crush on
friendship.
something, and okay, it's I need
Bhat.
to go back and watch.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah, I do. So I need
But
to
yeah,
watch iRobot. I need to watch Wally,
and Robot and Frank.
Robot, and Frank.
Very precise and.
Yeah. Okay, that was a fun
Yeah, that was a good
conversation
one.
today. Yeah, it was a good one. I think that brings us to the end of today's episode. What
What
about
did Mina
tomorrow? What
say?
are we doing tomorrow?
What did Mina say about iRobot? Whether it lived up to the book?
She didn't.
Wondered.
Did you?
Ah,
Did
we
you?
should never know.
What? I think okay. I haven't read the chats. I think she said Bicentennial Man was a bad movie. Okay,
It was.
it means you
I
watched
concur.
it. Okay, I haven't watched that. So
I
that's
hear
one
you.
movie I won't be watching. Uh,
Yeah, it was Disney. It was Disney in the age of Disney not making particularly good movies. So it was before Disney bought all the really good writers of the last 20 years of science fiction.
okay, I'm not going to. And I haven't watched many Disney movies, so I don't think I can agree or disagree on that. But okay. Anyway, so tomorrow,
I believe tomorrow is Jules Verne, which
Jules Verne
I accidentally
at
said
last.
last week
Yeah,
when it was
finally,
supposed to be our
we'll be
sequel.
talking
So
about Jules
we
Verne.
both watched half of it and went, "Oh no!"
Yeah. So tomorrow, finally, we'll be talking about Jules Verne. I have stuff to talk about, or at least, like I admitted last time. I mean, I've watched it. I've watched a few of his movies, or at least movies based on his works.
Yeah,
More than the other authors that we have talked up until now. I think
yeah,
Isaac Asimov was the one that I had more. Even the nickname Katie for Emily, which is
mhm,
K and T, is inspired. I think I'll admit it because it is inspired from QT.
yeah,
From one, I think Reason is the name of the short story by Isaac Asimov.
yes,
So yeah, he has. I wasn't aware of it. I realized it over today's podcast of how much I have been exposed to Isaac Asimov
yeah,
unknowingly. So yeah, Jules won today, tomorrow, and
yes.
hopefully, okay, not hopefully, I promise we'll be starting on time tomorrow at 3
We
p.m.
will not. We will not be starting on time tomorrow because I have a thing.
Oh
A
yeah.
thing that we have agreed
So
that
I
we will
will be
start
starting
later.
on time. I will be here at 3 p.m. and Lauren will be joining us 15 minutes into the stream. I'll be
Yeah.
here talking nonsense up until that point. So yeah, join us tomorrow at 3 p.m. Central European, 2 p.m. UK, and 1 p.m. Universal Coordinated Time.
Cool.
Coordinated Universal Time. You you see you see what's it called? You
UCT? Universal Core? I don't know. I've never written it down. Universal time. That.
yeah. Okay, that's it.
Cool.
That's it. That's good. Okay, I think
Cool.
then UTC. Thank you. Oh, Mina, it's called UTC. Okay.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
Mina's got our back. It's fine. Bye.
Cool.
Cool.
Ending stream.